Revelations about Neanderthals. Beyond the stereotypes. Despite recent scientific revelations that have advanced our understanding of Neanderthals, archaic connotations associated with the topic might still bring to mind brutish, savage humans. That classic image of a Neanderthal might pop into your head, an ape man dragging his knuckles while carrying a club. In reality, this is perhaps far from the truth, and we now know that Neanderthals were more like us than we could have ever imagined. They survived, communicated, played, and even loved as modern humans do. They were just another branch on our family tree, not a step back in time. There is much that scientists have managed to uncover about the social life of Neanderthals, their relationships, family life, rivalries, religions, and even romances through years of study. These discoveries have changed the way we look at Homo neanderthalensis, allowing us to gain a unique perspective on their lives. In some cases, we have gained a very human perspective on a species that was once perceived as very different from us. Today, we will be exploring these romantic relationships and beyond, discovering what we know about how Neanderthals loved and bonded with one another. Neanderthal DNA in modern humans. The most important fact we know about Stone Age relationships is that modern Europeans and Asians today have, on average, 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA in their genes. This is not a coincidence or an evolutionary trait. It is direct evidence that, on a large scale, early Homo sapiens interbred with Homo neanderthalensis. It seems that not all relationships in the Stone Age were purely Neanderthal-Neanderthal or human-human. Individuals outside of Europe and Asia appear to have significantly less Neanderthal DNA in their genes, or none at all depending on their ancestry, Africans. For example, tend to have no Neanderthal genes. As much of this interbreeding occurred in the groups of humans who migrated out of Africa and into Eurasia. In the regions where Neanderthals historically lived, their DNA persists to this day. Romantic encounters in the Stone Age. So, at some point in the late Pleistocene, on the windswept plains of the vast European mammoth steppe, a Neanderthal man and a human woman, or vice versa, may have met while searching for food for their respective family groups. With a sensitivity that we have not historically associated with species other than our own, the Neanderthal may have made an effort to win over his new partner, although it is unlikely they spoke the same language. If Neanderthals could even speak, a series of grunts and body language led them to intimacy. Soon, they cast off their animal hides to lie together in a sheltered glade. This is a fictional encounter, of course, but it is firmly based on facts. Encounters like this would have been common enough in the Pleistocene for remnants of Neanderthal DNA to persist. Despite belonging to a species that is completely extinct today, this couple would go on to raise a baby, their offspring being a Neanderthal-human hybrid, merging attributes of both species. Perhaps like Neanderthals, their child would have a prominent brow ridge and a robust stature, while maintaining the height and dexterity of their human parent. This, in turn, raises so many questions. Did the father and mother stay together, or did they immediately go their separate ways? Was the child able to acquire language, depending on who raised them? How did being a 50-50 hybrid impact this person's life growing up? Unfortunately, these are questions that may never be answered. The impact of Neanderthal DNA today, but what does having Neanderthal DNA mean for us in the modern world? Despite the small amount of Neanderthal DNA remaining in our genome today, it can actually have notable impacts. It is believed to influence various aspects of our physical appearance, including hair color and texture, height, the strength of our immune system, how well a human is able to handle high altitudes, and how strong their sense of smell might be. To name a few examples, the biggest of these factors is the impact that Neanderthal DNA can have on our immune system. The amount of Neanderthal DNA in our genome can directly impact how at risk we are of developing certain diseases or being able to fight off pathogens in our system. This is still an area that scientists are just beginning to understand, and much more investigation needs to be carried out if we want to truly understand how our Neanderthal heritage directly affects us in the modern world. Discovery of hybridization in caves. The origins of the investigation into interbreeding between Neanderthals and humans come from a discovery made in Peștera cu Oase, a cave system near what is now the Romanian city of Anina in the southwestern Carpathian Mountains. Scientists investigating the cave in February 2002 came across something that would revolutionize our understanding of ancient humans. Even entering the cave was a challenge. The researchers found themselves neck-deep in water, crossing an underground river that flowed through the completely dark cave network. What followed was a 30-meter dive, followed by a 300-meter climb to an opening where a new chamber could be explored. What they found was a treasure trove for Ice Age researchers. Thousands of mammal bones were scattered across the chamber floor in what was thought to be a den for cave bears. In the Ice Age, water would not have prevented the bears from entering the cave, and this isolated network was the perfect hideout. In the middle of the mountain of bones was a strange jawbone that clearly belonged to a human, but had features more associated with Neanderthals. This was not a human who was killed by bears and taken into the cave, but someone who died outside the cave and was washed inside when the river began to flow. Noting the unique discovery, the researchers extracted the bone from the cave, suspecting that this could indeed be evidence of hybridization in our own species. Years later, in 2015, their theory was confirmed when DNA sequencing showed that this human had up to 9% Neanderthal DNA. This person is believed to have had a pure Neanderthal ancestor between 4 to 6 generations before their existence, and that the interbreeding occurred less than 200 years before this individual was born. These interactions between humans and Neanderthals seem to have been common, at least common enough for their DNA to still be visible in us today. Hybrids may have been common enough that they had no difficulty integrating into Neanderthal or human societies. But of course, there is very little evidence to say one way or another about this in the fossil record. Eventually, Neanderthals would become extinct, and a prevailing theory as to why is that our genome essentially consumed theirs. Interbreeding may have become so common that hybrid Neanderthals soon became interchangeable with humans as their numbers dwindled and human populations grew. Evidence of affectionate relationships and intimacy. So we know that Neanderthals interbred with humans, but what were the social and romantic relationships between these couples? Like, how did they interact? And is there any evidence to suggest these relationships were affectionate? Surprisingly, there may be evidence of kissing in the fossil record. In an incredible study conducted by Laura Wyrick, an anthropologist at Pennsylvania State University in 2017, much of her previous work had focused on the diet and ecology of Neanderthals. This study involved sequencing the DNA from fossilized plaque that had accumulated on the teeth of Neanderthal specimens. Samples from 3 European caves were used, but those from the El Cedrón cave in northern Spain proved to be the most intriguing. The El Cedrón Neanderthals were some of the last Neanderthal specimens to walk the earth. Their DNA showed extensive histories of interbreeding with modern humans, and their broader skeletons were riddled with abnormalities, deformed bones, baby teeth found in adults, and distorted vertebrae. Furthermore, cut marks and teeth marks on their bones show that when they died, they were cannibalized by those living in the same cave. These were desperate individuals on the brink of extinction, the last members of their species in a world that had been dominated by Homo sapiens. One of the teeth in Laura's study contained traces of Methanobrevibacter oralis, a microorganism found in the mouths of modern humans. The Neanderthal microorganism differed slightly from the modern variant, which allowed Laura to determine that the two variants split about 120,000 years ago. Furthermore, however, is that this bacterium appears to have been transferred from human to Neanderthal at some point along the human's evolutionary path. This may or may not be evidence that Stone Age relationships were more affectionate than previously thought. This could be genuine evidence that during moments of closeness, Neanderthals kissed, transferring the microscopic organisms living in their mouths from individual to individual, and occasionally between species to modern humans. However, it could be evidence of something else entirely. Oral microbes can be transferred from person to person if food is shared. Perhaps interbreeding Neanderthals and humans lived together, sharing the fruits of their gathering and eating together. Theories on relationships and daily life. Other studies have provided insights into the sexual relationships of Neanderthals that reveal a darker side, the transmission of diseases through intimacy between humans and Neanderthals. Researcher Vil Pimenov, conducting studies on the sexually transmitted disease human papillomavirus HPV, noted some strange trends in the virus that date back to the times when our ancestors interbred with Neanderthals. The patterns of different types of HPV, for example, HPV A, B, and C, correlate with the amount of Neanderthal DNA present in people around the world. HPV type A, the most common, is associated with individuals with Neanderthal DNA in their genomes, while HPV B and C are more commonly found in modern Africans who lack the Neanderthal influence in their genes. HPV A appears between 60,000 and 120,000 years ago, when humans began to disperse from Africa into Eurasia. It is believed that Neanderthals and humans may have exchanged diseases while reproducing with each other, and HPV has remained in circulation among humans in the modern world. Vil conducted extensive research on this idea, and the results have consistently supported this theory. Moreover, HPV was not transmitted to a human just once, but to many humans on many different occasions, which further reinforces the idea that this was the product of frequent reproduction between humans and Neanderthals. Without a time machine, it can be difficult to discern the details of Neanderthal relationships with humans or with their own species. There are several theories that have been proposed about how Neanderthal relationships worked. Logistically speaking, however, it is believed that the male in any Stone Age relationship, whether human or Neanderthal, would determine where the couple would live. Couples may have settled down if they chose to bond long-term, near the man's tribe or homeland, and family groups were formed. If a family group could be established long-term, the women would likely leave the group to find a partner when they reach maturity. Neanderthal babies were breastfed for about 9 months and weaned around 14 months. Complete sequencing of the Neanderthal genome has revealed that older women generally reproduced with younger men. If couples stayed together, they would likely both participate in the daily survival efforts of the group they were part of gathering. Hunting, raising, and caring for their children. They may have practiced basic belief systems or religions together. They may have laughed and played with each other. And if they could, spoken about their world and the plants and animals that lived in it. Physical contact, just as it is in humans and modern great apes, may have been common. We know that Neanderthals created and used jewelry made from bones and minerals from their environments, but whether or not this was intended to make the wearer more attractive to a partner is still unknown. As Neanderthals became increasingly less common towards the end of the Pleistocene, interactions like this became less and less frequent. The last remaining populations of pure Neanderthals would have suffered from birth defects due to their small populations and difficult lifestyles. Eventually, their genes were absorbed into ours, and all that remains of pure Neanderthals are their bones and the fragments of DNA that remain in our genomes today. That said, there is every reason to believe that love thrived in the Stone Age. Despite the harsh conditions, intimacy and physical touch were common, and after all, Neanderthals were human. They may have expressed their love in various emotional and physical ways that have been lost in the fossil record. Perhaps one day, as more evidence is uncovered, we will learn exactly what it was like to love and form relationships in our distant past